Welcome back, and thanks again for being part of our sangha, our community of practice tonight. Um, and yeah, I got the idea for what I wanted to talk about on Friday at our weekly metta meeting. We practiced forgiveness, specifically self-forgiveness, which for many of us is a very sticky place, often a lot easier to forgive others than it is ourselves. So when we practice metta or the Brahma Viharas, the divine abidings, or I like to think of them as the framework of a full heart, we're practicing with the energy of love. That's the root. Metta. It's like this pure, bright energy of unconditional love that's boundless, radiant, and pure and beautiful. And when that kind of boundless love meets suffering in the world, or it meets pain or difficulty, it manifests as karuna, or what gets translated as compassion, or the quickening of the heart. You know, that feeling that, yes, I want to help. I want this to be different than it is. I want this suffering to end. And at its most essential level, the energy of compassion is simply caring. And so forgiveness to me has elements of compassion and caring in it. And there is so much to forgive living in this world, and so much that it can seem impossible to forgive living in this world. So Larry Yang, who some of you know, who was our first guiding teacher of our Sangha, asked in a retreat that I sat with him on the Brahma Viharas, he asked, can I forgive the first noble truth? Can I forgive the first noble truth? The truth that we live in a world that is pretty full of injustice, violence, greed, pain. You know, is it possible to forgive this world? And then how can we forgive the world if we haven't forgiven ourselves? So on Friday, I related the story of walking in town here in Palm Springs early one morning and walking past a man who seemed in some distress sitting on a bench near the sidewalk. And he was talking to himself and he was kind of rocking back and forth. And he just kept repeating, whatever you did, it's okay. It's unchangeable. Whatever you did, it's okay. It's unchangeable. And even though he seemed in distress, he was also offering himself some care, it felt like to me, offering himself some compassion, perhaps some self-forgiveness. It's okay, it's okay. And then there was that really deep Dharma wisdom as well. It's unchangeable. And also there was a practice in what he was doing, seeking to relate to the places within that cause pain or regret or are seemingly really difficult to forgive, to relate in a new way to what's here. What has happened is unchangeable. There's no going back. But what I can do, what we can do, is change our present moment relationship to the past, to our regrets, to our conditioning through mindfulness and forgiveness. And I've been noticing lately what I call stuckness. And so that's kind of what I want to focus on a bit today. You know, what is stuckness? How do we get stuck? And how do we get free? So, do you have places that feel stuck for you? I definitely do. Sometimes I feel very stuck around my practice, like I'm just not getting anywhere or I'm not getting there fast enough. Sometimes I feel stuck around habits that I just don't seem to be able to get past. Habits of mind, habits of body, habits of heart. Sometimes I feel stuck around my own capacity simply to cope with my racing mind. And there are so many places where we may feel this sense of stuckness, and even stuck with ourselves. And it's not a good feeling. And yet, like anger or grief or any of the difficult emotions, it's telling us something. It's a messenger, it's giving us useful information. And sometimes it might be motivated by a comparing mind or attachment or craving, like, I want what that person has and I should have that, and I'm stuck because I don't, or what dominant culture tells me I should have or be, or whatever it is. And then it may also be that the sense of stuckness is highlighting a gap between here and where I want to be, how it is now, and how our spiritual intuition tells us we need to move or grow or change. And I think that distinction is kind of key. You know, if we were unstuck, what would lead us to greater freedom, more ease, more love? If we were liberated out of the quicksand and suddenly walking on dry land, where would we be walking to? Are we walking in the direction of wise intention, the second place on the Noble Eightfold Path? In other words, are we walking in the direction of harmlessness, letting go of attachments, and compassion? If I were unstuck, where would I be headed? So I was thinking about this show from the 1970s called Mary Hartman, Mary Hartman. And David and I recently rewatched a whole bunch of them on DVD. And I don't expect anybody to remember it necessarily. It was a long time ago. But it starred Louise Lasser. And she was Mary. And she was a married woman with a kid and a husband she didn't particularly care for in a small town with parents that were kind of odd and, you know, not very connected. And she was feeling stuck. And it was sort of a comedy slash soap opera. And Mary was really, to me, like a bodhisattva in the making, because you could see she was waking up. She could feel the stuckness in her life. Not everyone else couldn't necessarily see it, but she could feel it. She was waking up to that sense of unease. She could feel what the Buddha calls dukkha, you know, this life out of balance. She was waking up to the realization that happiness didn't lie in the direction of self-numbing or ignoring her own discomfort. But she did try. So at one point, and this is what made me laugh, her friend tells her, Mary, you can't run away from your life. You can't run away from your problems, Mary. And Mary, who was always deadpan, said, oh, I think I can. And that's what so many of us do. That's what I do. It's like, yeah, I think I can probably outrun this. But no, it doesn't really work that way. We feel stuck or in pain or triggered. And instead of being with that, instead we get stuck in more ways of numbing out or running away like Mary wanted to. Or maybe we get caught in aversion or anger, self-criticism or doubt. So the knowing that we're feeling stuck is a gift. Because as soon as we're aware of a thing, our relationship to it can become intentional rather than automatic. We know this from our practice and our study of the Dharma. We can bring these solvents of mindfulness and self-forgiveness and wisdom to our experience and these stuck places. But before that happens, it's likely we will have spent many years getting stuck and getting ourselves in deeper. And in Buddhist teaching, these kind of mental constructs are called sankharas. And we take these to be very solid, very real, and they obscure the free flow of who we are. They're the concoctions or fixations of the mind, the ideas that we have. They're the conditioning that if it isn't seen and held compassionately with wisdom and the tenderness of forgiveness and the solvency of mindfulness, tends to grow and grow until we can feel very stuck. So for example, say that we have a feeling like I'm unsafe in groups, which is one of the feelings I've had in my life. And maybe this has its origin in early childhood, maybe being bullied on the playground in preschool, even, or something else. The story isn't so important, but there is some conditioning that comes to be. So imagine that as a stone that has been tossed into the stream of experience. So then every time I'm in that situation again, or a situation reminds me of that experience, even if it's quite different, it's like a piece of flotsam in the stream, some grass or a stick or a piece of plastic or whatever, and it gets stuck on that first rock. And so the blockage gets a little bigger. And of course, life being what life is, things keep floating down the river. And that feeling of not being safe gets activated, added to again and again and again. And things start tangling around that stone. And the size of it, the stone itself isn't growing, but the blockage is growing. And over time, what started out as, a small rock in the stream is now a big impediment, an entanglement in the stream of my life, the free flow of my spontaneity, my creativity, my openness. There's stuckness in the flow. And that's just how it is. That's how it is right now. And whether it's a feeling of not being safe or not being enough or not being worthy or regret or shame, whatever you did, whatever it is, it's okay. It's unchangeable. So there's that teaching again. And it sounds harsh, but it's exactly right. Because in the Buddha Dharma, there is no God keeping track. There is no judger. There is no judgment, just cause and effect. So the Buddha taught this again and again in so many ways. Idapa chayata, this, that conditionality. When this is, that is. From the arising of this comes the arising of that. When this isn't, that isn't. From the cessation of this comes the cessation of that. It's a very simple core way of stating dependent origination, one of the Buddha's central teachings. When this is, that is. When this isn't, that isn't. So what has happened cannot unhappen. How it is in this moment with the conditioning that we have, the lived experience that we have, the wounds in the tender places, the stones in the stream that have grown untended by the accretion of things coming down the stream. That's how it is. That's how this moment has arrived to us. And you'll hear me sometimes quote Kobun Chino Ataga, the contents of this moment are the contents of awakening. So we're always where we need to be because awakening happens in this moment. And it's this moment that I'm emphasizing. This moment inherits the rocks in the stream covered with debris. This moment can't be different. And there is acceptance in that. There is some forgiving of the First Noble Truth that Larry spoke of. Accepting it's like this. And sometimes it can feel in Dharma circles like we are being invited into a kind of passive acceptance of things as they are. Nothing can be done. But I think it's more correct to accept things as they have arrived. There's a difference there. Acceptance doesn't mean passivity or resignation. It's just that clear seeing and wisdom that, oh, this is how it is right now. But it isn't, that's how it is, and there's nothing I can do or nothing that can be done. It's not just about getting used to it and enduring it. If I see the moment clearly with mindful awareness, with wisdom, then I know that this moment is part of the flow as well. It's not fixed. Nothing is fixed. Everything is flowing, moving, interrelated in a dance of conditionality, causes and conditions constantly arising and re-arising. So this is the mark of existence that the Buddha called anicca, one of his key teachings, a place to really, really, really notice. Noticing change, noticing non-fixedness, that nothing conditioned is permanent or truly solid. So there's a Mahayana text that I wanted to read that describes this. All things conditioned are unstable, impermanent, fragile in essence as an unbaked pot, like something borrowed or a city founded on sand. They last a short while only. They are inevitably destroyed, like plaster washed off in the rains, like the sandy bank of a river. They are conditioned, and their true nature is frail. They are like the flame of a lamp, which rises suddenly and as soon goes out. They have no power of endurance, like the wind or like foam, unsubstantial, essentially feeble. So that's pointing to the flow of experience, the movement of what we experience. And so at any moment we are experiencing this flow. We are in this flow with everything else that is conditioned and changing. We are no more solid than anything else. So nothing can be different. We cannot control what has arrived, and it is not fixed. We can't return to last year's river. The past is unchangeable, but change is possible. So we can bring our mindful awareness, our wise intentions, a sense of compassionate forgiveness of ourselves and the world. Forgiveness, and particularly self-forgiveness, is a powerful lubricant for whatever is stuck to become free. Without that energy, it's very difficult to look, to even want to look, to hold what's here caringly, compassionately. It's not easy work. Most of our patterns and stuck places are there to protect us from unpleasant feeling, from shame, from exposure, from danger. And it takes a lot of self-awareness to know them and respond with the appropriate energies. So how do we do this? So I want to offer this by the Irish mystic poet John O'Donoghue. The mind of time is hard to read. We can never predict what it will bring. Not even from all that is already gone can we say what form it finally takes. For time gathers its moments secretly. Often we only know it's time to change when a force has built inside the heart that leaves us uneasy as we are. Often we only know it's time to change when a force has built inside the heart that leaves us uneasy as we are. So when we know it's time to change, that pull to become unstuck, flowing freely again, in line with our inherent, radiant, creative nature. So how do we do this? So the first step is seeing or recognizing the stuck places. And this is where the cultivation of mindfulness is our strong ally. Getting in the habit of actually looking at what's here in our lives. And the Buddha invited us into 4 establishments of mindfulness, or locations to practice from. The body, noticing our reactions, noticing our mental states, noticing the dharmas like anicca in our experience, just really paying attention to what we are experiencing, not so much what we have experienced or want to experience, but what's actually happening right now. So that's what we're doing on the cushion or the chair or the couch or the bed, and we're training to stay awake to this moment and its contents. And when we sit on the cushion or wherever, we're practicing to stay awake in the moment, when that triggering thing happens, or when that difficult conversation happens in real life, or that person cuts us off in the car, or somebody is aggressive towards us. Noticing, we're becoming aware and noticing the tension in the body that alerts us to one of those rocks in the stream that's getting hit with another stick or a tangled reed. The contraction around that moment where we get activated, and staying awake to the process as much as we can, to what's happening. So to use that feeling of unsafeness in crowded places or groups of people. So coming into a new place, lots of noise and people talking loudly, to use my example. And so my conditioning says that's dangerous and I need to hide in some way to get out, or go numb because I don't want to be here, because it's unsafe, or because it once was unsafe. So it's another reed getting caught on the rock. But I can notice that. I can see, oh, there's that again. I know this. So perhaps I recognize what's happening because of my training in mindfulness. Mindfulness slows down our experience of time because we're actually with the flow, and we're not way upstream or downstream, the past or the future, but actually here where the unfolding is. And then with that mindful awareness, there's the possibility of relating in new ways. And at first, and for a long time, it might just be, oh, I see it. I see the trigger. I see the anxiety. I feel the stuckness of it. This is a big thing and it's difficult. And that might be all we can do in the moment. And over time, as we become more and more intimate, familiar, conscious of our triggers, we may have the capacity to change our response. First of all, to hold it with forgiveness and patience. This is how it is right now. This is what has arrived. No judgment, no blame, no shame. This is just how it is. It's okay. It's okay. Of course it's like this. And I'm not going to run off. I'm just going to see if I can be with this. So there's the chance to let this piece of flotsam or whatever it is not get caught in the tangle. So instead of adding to the size of the obstruction, there's an intention toward non-adding. And that's huge. Already we are transforming and beginning to heal our future experience. And of course, we'll get triggered again and again, because right now, the habit, the sankhara, the conditioning is strong. It's grown big because it hasn't been tended to the way we are now able to tend to it. Tending to the stuck and sticky places with awareness, with patience, and even with that forgiveness of ourselves and the world for being as it is. And the more we allow mindfulness and clear awareness to flow through our practice, the more it wears down the stuck places. We're adding less and less, and we're identifying more with the flowing than the obstruction. So remember that sutta: all things conditioned are unstable, impermanent, fragile in essence, as an unbaked pot. Eventually we do break through. It may take some time. It probably will. I can speak from experience on that. It will take persistence for sure. And virya, that energy, that's an awakening factor. Energy that comes from confidence that change is possible, that getting unstuck is possible. And sometimes we are resistant to change even though we hunger for it. Even though we feel the stuckness and we want to get free, it can also feel very familiar, seductive, safe even, or like it's just too much effort. How do I get out from this? And when that happens, then we need to look at the resistance and see what's informing it. what it relies on. Often we don't really see the harm in continuing the pattern, whether it's anger or jealousy or shame or numbing ourselves. It may be uncomfortable, but it isn't so uncomfortable that we work to free ourselves from it. Maybe we don't even believe we can. And so we need to look at what happens if I keep letting this conditioning get stronger and stronger, because that's what will happen if I don't look at it, if I don't pay attention to it. What happens downstream if I don't recognize and work with my fears or my places of clinging or my places of self-delusion? You know, the Buddha taught that this is what impinges our being free, our liberation. He called these the three poisons: greed, aversion, delusion. And all of the places where we get stuck are variants of these poisons. When we truly know something is poison, we cut it out. We have to really know that. When it's clear to us, it's not so difficult to drop it. And the more that we can be with our uneasiness and our stuck places, the more we experience the flow of awareness and wisdom over time, the more confidence we not only have in the Buddha Dharma, the Buddha's teachings, but our own capacity for self-healing, for self-liberation. That yes, I can do this. I am in this moment where I can change what happens downstream. Can I forgive life? Can I forgive myself? Can I forgive the stones in the river? And where can I put my trust? Where can I put my confidence? So it's an invitation to notice these places that are almost pre-thought, pre-emotion. Notice that physical reaction, that contraction around the sticky places, that alert. And see if in the noticing, the recognition, that it's possible to stay with rather than run from. And maybe that's just the practice for a while, maybe a long while, just the simple noticing, this is how it is. This is how it is right now. And then at some point, seeing if it's possible to bring kindness and care, an energy, an attitude of forgiveness, patience to what is. And then maybe that's the practice for a while longer. It's okay. It's okay. It's like this. It's okay. And so, in that way, we are tending to the stuck place. And through awareness, we're no longer adding to it unconsciously or automatically. And then in that field of care, listening to your own wisdom, your own inner teacher, listening to that wisdom to guide you in how to hold this moment in a new way that moves you in the direction of freedom. Often we only know it's time to change when a force has built inside the heart that leaves us uneasy as we are. So just noticing where that place might be for you. If there's a place you might want to engage and practice with, or maybe a familiar place that you're already engaging with. So let's just sit for a moment and allow the words and thoughts to settle. And just noticing if there is a place that comes to mind for you that you want to work with. And maybe framing that as an intention for the next week or month. Yeah, I'm really going to be with that. I know it comes up. Can I forgive myself for that? Can I allow that that's here? Can I accompany it with kindness? Can I not run from it? Hey, so very much interested in if anyone has any thoughts or questions or rebuttals that you'd like to share, or maybe how you're working with this yourself, or anything at all. Just feel free to unmute yourself or raise your hand if you'd like me to do that. Okay. Okay, the only thing I didn't announce is the date of our next half day. Rule, do you happen to know that, or Jason, maybe? I think it's November. I think it's November 9th. I'm not sure. But anyway, we're going to keep doing them. I know there's two more this year. Jokai's doing the next one, and then I'm doing the one in December. So I'm just curious, are there people here today who were at the day long yesterday? Bob, great, good, good. I was just wondering if there was overlap. So that's good. Yeah, we're going to keep doing those, and it's a lovely way of reconnecting. So let's close by taking a moment to appreciate our practice and appreciate each other, and offer a dedication of merit. So this is really sharing the goodness of our practice and our community with all beings. So may the inclining of our hearts and minds toward the wholesome, the generous, the noble, toward unlimited love and goodwill be for the benefit of all sentient beings. May this offering of our collective practice ripple outward endlessly, without boundary or obstruction, including all beings in its embrace. May all beings know peace. May all beings be free. And may your week be beautiful and full of opportunities to practice. And hope to practice with you again very soon. All right. Take care, everyone.